सिंपल भाषा में, कोई हाई फ्लाइंग अंग्रेजी नहीं, क्योंकि मैनी पीपल टॉक अबाउट ई गवर्नेंस बट but very few people really know what e-governance means and how it can benefit. So after my speech, I will request my colleague Lakshmi Kant to circulate one of my papers. It's called e-governance 0.0, and you can also search it online. Just search Rajesh Agarwal e-governance 0.0, and afternoon you can walk to our stall, Maharashtra government stall, take a small quiz on e-governance and win 200 rupees cash. If you listen to me very properly, you can definitely win that 200 rupees. That's the incentive. तो मैं कल शाम को चंडीगढ़ आया तो बारिश बहुत हो रही थी, सेक्टर 17 की मार्केट में तो जा नहीं पाए, तो टीवी देखने लग गए। टीवी पे आम आदमी छाया हुआ था। आज सुबह भी टीवी लगाया तो आम आदमी। तो आम आदमी की क्या समस्या है? हर जगह लाइन में लगना पड़ता है। आजकल तो पैदा होने से पहले लाइन में लगना पड़ता है। नर्सरी एडमिशन में माँ बाप को नाम दिखाना पड़ता है कि बच्चा पैदा होने वाला 4 साल बाद उसको नर्सरी में एडमिशन चाहिए। तो लंबी लाइन है, पैटी करप्शन एट एवरी स्टेज। किसी भी गवर्नमेंट ऑफिस में जाओ, सड़क पे कोई गवर्नमेंट ऑफिसर हो, पुलिस वाला हो, कोई भी हो, इट्स अ वेरी ह्यूमिलेटिंग एक्सपीरियंस फॉर द कॉमन मैन। और जैसे हमारे महाराष्ट्र के अन्ना हजारे बोलते हैं कि जो नौकर थे वो मालिक बन बैठे। सो हु आर पब्लिक सर्वेंट्स द कॉमन मैन एनकाउंटर्स? पटवारी हुआ, तहसीलदार हुआ, लंबरदार हुआ, पुलिस कांस्टेबल हुआ, आपका इलेक्ट्रीशियन हुआ, वायरमैन हुआ। So the experience is bad. So what is the solution? Is the solution more laws? No. In fact, solution is actually lesser governance, more e-governance. So I will talk of very small things and some macro things. You know, Chandigarh is like homecoming to me. I am from Jalandhar. My wife's family is from Jind and Maham, so pakke Haryanvi hain. So it brings back childhood memories. I will talk about one such memory. In 1981, I was in 10th standard. तो हमारे हिंदी के टीचर थे। उस टाइम 5 लीटर कैरोसिन के लिए 4-5 घंटे लाइन में लगना पड़ता था। Obviously, he will not stand in line himself. तो हम 2-3 बच्चों को भेज देते थे अपना राशन कार्ड देके। और हमें इंसेंटिव ये था कि हम 2-3 घंटे क्रिकेट भी खेल के आते थे और आके बोलते थे बहुत लंबी लाइन थी, 6 घंटे लग गए। सो वहां से रिमेंबर बहुत लंबी लाइन लगी थी जब हम राशन कार्ड लेके पहुंचे, तो पक्का से 3-4 घंटे लगने वाले थे। तो लकीली क्या हुआ, जब शॉपकीपर ने वो पूरी ढेर उठाया राशन कार्ड का तो वो नीचे गिर गया। उसने फिर रैंडम ऑर्डर में इकट्ठे किए। जब उसने एक एक करके नाम बुलाना चालू किया, भाई अगला बंदा अपने कैन लेके आ जाओ 5 लीटर के लिए, तो हमारा चौथे नंबर पे नंबर लग गया। सो वी रियली जंपिंग विद जॉय दैट डे। चलो आज तो 4 घंटे क्रिकेट खेलेंगे। सो लेट मी आस्क ए क्वेश्चन नाउ। सो हाउ डिड द सिस्टम चेंज? सिस्टम में क्या हुआ? हम फीफो फर्स्ट इन फर्स्ट आउट, नॉर्मली वो सिस्टम चल रहा था। जब कार्ड गिर गए तो क्या हुआ? रैंडम हो गया, लॉटरी लग गई, तो हमारी लॉटरी लग गई। So now let me ask you one question. So in which places is FIFO better? Which places is lottery better? And which places neither of them is good? Very good questions. First in first out. कहाँ पे अच्छा है ये सिस्टम? In government we have thoroughly mixed up things. जो पूरा 2G स्कैम हुआ, कोलगेट हुआ, we mixed up things. हमने फर्स्ट इन फर्स्ट आउट कर दिया। जो पहले से जाके बैठा हुआ था अंदर संचार भवन में, उसको पहले स्पेक्ट्रम मिल गया, तो फर्स्ट इन फर्स्ट आउट हो गया। पूरा 2G वही था, पूरा कोलगेट भी वही था, So, any ideas where first in first out is very good? Very quick. We don't have too much time. So hospital patients line up for first in first out. Okay. Anything else? Tickets, rail tickets. तो रेल टिकट्स में क्या होता था, फर्स्ट इन फर्स्ट आउट आप लाइन में जाके लग जाते हो, तो पुरानी बात है, अभी यंग बच्चे तो इंटरनेट पर जाते हैं. सो यू गो देयर, पीछे से एक ट्रैवल एजेंट आपको दिखता था कि वो पिछले गेट से आ रहा है और काउंटर पे सीधा बंडल लेके जा रहा है. सो पीपल कुड रीड द बैक एंड सिस्टम. सो फर्स्ट इन फर्स्ट आउट में. सो वेयर इज लॉटरी वेरी गुड? एनी क्विक क्वेश्चंस, एनी क्विक आंसर्स? Nursery admissions. So nursery admissions, some people say it should be first in first out. Some people say it should be lottery. So in Maharashtra we do Mahada lottery, housing lottery, almost every year. आपको पता है बॉम्बे में तो घर बहुत महंगे हैं, इवन वसई विरार उस साइड भी बहुत महंगे हैं. Every time we do lottery, at least 2-3 lakh people apply. So we have a randomization software, we have online applications, and that lottery is worth about 1,000 crores every time. जो महाड़ा घर देता है जिस रेट पे और जो उसका मार्केट प्राइस है उसमें तकरीबन 1,000 करोड़ का डिफरेंस होता है. So we have been doing this since 4 years without a single complaint. So lottery worth 1,000 crores, 5-6,000 people win that lottery. और उसमें धीरे धीरे काफी इनोवेशंस हुआ. पहले जब होता था तो 1 lakh 2 lakh people they would deposit lots of papers. Scrutiny will take 3-4 months. फिर लाइट बल्ब जला या 1 लाख लोग अप्लाई करते हैं, विनर तो 2,000 है, तो वाई डू वी आस्क फॉर पेपर्स? जस्ट जो फीस है वो बंदा नेट बैंकिंग से भरे, ऑनलाइन एप्लीकेशन भरे, यू डू एन ऑनलाइन लॉटरी, एंड जो विनर्स और वेटिंग लिस्ट वाले यू गेट पेपर्स ओनली फ्रॉम देम फॉर वेरिफिकेशन. सो दैट्स अनदर सिंप्लीफिकेशन. So lottery is good. This is an example of e-governance. Now let me ask another question. Can you quote things where FIFO is not good, where lottery is also not good? Any examples? Quick. So again, okay. Okay. So recently, last week, आप कल परसों पढ़ रहे थे कि 2G ऑप्शन हुआ दोबारा से. It has netted 50,000 crores. So what is better than sometimes better than before lottery is an e-auction. This e-auction thing is very, very great actually. And you can see it working in 2G auctions. If you had done FIFO at standard 1,600 or 800 crore rupees per spectrum license, 2.2 megahertz or whatever, it could have netted about 10,000 crores. So lottery and e-auction basically makes it more transparent. Now we were not the first ones. Andhra, Karnataka actually beat Maharashtra to this. So in Maharashtra, since 2 years back we said all tenders above 50 lakh rupees, they will be on e-tendering. Last year, April, we said any tenders above 10 lakhs across the state, they will be e-tendering. So from this April, we are saying any tender above 3 lakh rupees, that will be on e-tendering. So last year Maharashtra did e-tendering through NIC as well as City Next tenders, worth about 40,000 crores. And last fortnight in a meeting, our Deputy Chief Minister who handles energy portfolio also was mentioning, in transmission tenders, due to e-tendering, we got 15% better rates. So 40,000 crore into 15% or conservatively even 5%. So we have saved about 3,000-4,000 crore rupees just by use of e-tendering. Next, e-auctions, sand auctions. So our Maharashtra experience is where to do e-auction, you actually end up getting almost 3 times the price. In district after district, which have gone on e-tendering of sand mining auctions, the revenue they are getting is 3 times higher. So e-auction of, now Forest Department is doing e-auction of Tendu leaves in our Nagpur pad. Other departments are thinking of even e-auction of lands. They are actually doing it. For example, CIDCO has done actually e-auction of lands. MMRDA does that. So these are some macro things. E-tenders, e-auctions, they really help. Okay, now coming back to basically the Aam Aadmi thing. So, what are the parishani? One is lambi line, second is petty corruption. So, how do you reduce the lines? First thing is, should the citizen really need so many things from the government? Now, in many meetings, J. Satyanarayana has actually gone, was Secretary Government of India. He talks about e-tal and increasing numbers in e-tal. He was complimenting Haryana ki number बढ़ गए 65 लाख हो गए अब चौथे नंबर पे आ गए. And I always say e-transaction should actually stand not for electronic transaction but for eliminating transaction. How can you reduce or eliminate that transaction at all? In Maharashtra actually we are taking pride कि हम number कम कर रहे हैं बढ़ाने के बजाय. So e-tal, our numbers are actually decreasing. And they are not decreasing because we are not working, they are decreasing because we are doing some dramatic BPR, business process reengineering. Here I give one example. In Maharashtra, after 10th standard, kids go to junior colleges. Our schools are running up to 10th standard. Every year, lakhs of kids basically apply for 11th standard junior college admissions. Now, one document used to be domicile certificates. So, what is the normal way? Student gets a domicile certificate. They go to collector office. They go to Tehsil office. They see obviously very long lines. And how do you jump a long line? What is the solution to a long line? Catch it out. So, in India, we have solutions to everything, simple solutions, commonsensical solutions. So, long line, you have doubts. So, you pay him 500, 1000 rupees. So, he will get this job done for you in 3-4 hours or whatever. So, that is scenario 1, very common scenario. What was scenario 2? Our government said, Shasan tumche dari, government at your doorsteps. So during admission season, ministers, collectors, divisional commissioners, they would hold special camps in big college grounds. So everybody would come there. So it would be like a camp approach. So you come in that camp, stay around for a day, and you go back with your domicile certificate without much bribes or without any bribes. So what is third evolution? So we have citizen service centers. So this workshop is actually CSC oriented workshop. So rather than coming to district or even coming to Tehsil office, you go to CSC near your village or within your village. You pay him official fees. In my respect, it's now 20 rupees plus service tax, so about 22 rupees. In many states, at least CSCs, some of them have degenerated into decentralized towns. So there is an official fees and there is an unofficial price. In luckily Maharashtra now citizens are getting more and more aware. So they say nahi, official rate ye hai, hum to official rate hi denge. So in government offices they can't be that strict. The citizens are slightly diffident in government offices. But with their own village boy, they can tell him at his face, nahi yaar, main to official price hi dunga, buy sakta hai. So you give papers there, you get a computerized slip that come after 3 days. So this fellow goes on a motorcycle to Tehsil office, gets everybody's stamps. So after 3-4 days, the kid again comes back to CSC, picks up his certificate. What is next evolution? Anybody? After CSC, what's the next evolution? very logical evolution. That's online self-service. So you sit at your home on your internet connection and you do something and you get a digitally signed certificate. Self-service. What's final evolution? So some bright spark here in Maharashtra said that why the hell do kids need domicile certificate at all? जिसने 10वीं महाराष्ट्र से पास किया है उसको डोमिसाइल मत मांगो. जो बाहर से आया महाराष्ट्र के, he will anyway come with migration certificate and all that stuff. So 5 things: standing in a line, to government at your doorsteps camp approach, to CSC approach, to online self-service with digitally signed output, to an eliminated transaction. Some of our bright collectors have been doing some studies on this. For example, Varda collector did a study, and that is true across the country. What is the most basically high volume transaction in the country? It is your copy of Satbar, our land record. I do not know what they call it in Haryana. So खसरा बोलते हैं. तो खसरा कौन देता है कॉपी? सरकार देती है. मांगता कौन है? सरकार मांगती है यार. अपनी जमीन खरीदनी बेचनी है, सरकार खसरा मांगती है. आपको सरकारी बैंक से लोन चाहिए, सरकार खसरा मांगती है. जो कागज सरकार के पास ही है, why the hell should citizen ask for that paper, basically get that copy at all? Why can't it be dematerial? For example, my daughter appeared for GRE exam. When she applied for a number of universities, they did not ask for a scanned copy of her GRE score. They said, "आपका GRE का roll number डाल दो," and from server to server they pick up the information. So why can't the banks pick up the information from the land title servers? Why can't the stamp registration guy pick up this information from the servers? So time has come where we should actually ban a lot of such transactions. We should actually pass an act, the Lokpal Act or whatever act. It should actually say कि जो कागज सरकार के पास है, सरकार वो कागज सिटीजन से नहीं मांगेगी. It is the responsibility of the government department to pick up that information, not the responsibility of the citizen to run around the government, pick up that piece of paper, then submit it to another government department. This is crazy. No other developed nation does it. So unless we have such a thing, we will just see unnecessary transactions going on. Whether they are manual or electronic does not matter. Unnecessary is unnecessary. Okay, so when we talk of BPR, one is trying to eliminate the transactions. And actually when a lot of other officers basically talk to me on e-governance projects in their departments, I ask half jokingly, यार अगर आपका डिपार्टमेंट बंद कर दो तो सिटीजन खुश होगा कि दुखी होगा? कंप्यूटराइज करने से पहले एक सवाल का आंसर चाहिए. Just imagine your department just puts a big lock and it just vanishes. Will the citizen be unhappy or unhappy? I am not saying we should close down agricultural department. But just imagine, agricultural department ना हो तो किसान की खेती कम हो जाएगी क्या? गेहूं कम निकलेगी क्या खेत में से? Just ask these questions to yourself. So should we be taking lot of e-governance projects? I see octroi departments doing computerization. This is crazy. Who has octroi apart from India? Ethiopia. No other nation in the world. So should we be computerizing octroi or shutting down octroi? We see a lot of agriculture produce marketing committees. या मंडी बोलते हैं. Should we be computerizing them or should we be closing them? So first thing, very broad question, should the department exist? Second, the activity you are trying to computerize, should it exist? Okay, if the answer is yes, then third, when we do computerization, and these days computerization is practically meaning e-transaction. We have moved far ahead from static websites. Anybody who says वेबसाइट बना दी कंप्यूटराइजेशन हो गया, डिपार्टमेंट में कंप्यूटर खरीद लिया कंप्यूटराइजेशन हो गया, I think that's very silly. So these days e-governance or IT means actually e-transaction, end-to-end e-transaction. So we have been trying to simplify various, basically 30-40 major e-transactions which make up about 95% of the volume. So you typically have to go for the 20-80 principle. 80% of your energies go into something which yields 20% and so on. So we picked up the high volume transactions. Now what are the things in a form? So people say government asks everything in triplicate. So this is unfortunately translating into e-forms also. Only yesterday I was actually sitting with my team, JST Nagrik card, senior citizen card. On the card which we give to senior citizen, there are 7 fields, including his photograph. Photograph plus 6 other things are printed on the card, which Maharashtra government gives. Then I looked at the data structures. Software data structure had 62 fields. So since yesterday morning, I have a lot of email transactions with my team that we have to bring it down from 62 to 8 or 9. 7 are the fields which are printed on the card and 2-3 may be internal hidden fields. So reducing the length of the forms. Now all of us, we are well educated, most of us are in the government sector. If we have to fill up any form, we keep on delaying it. We are afraid of filling up the forms. What about an illiterate citizen? So the forms have to be truly simple. Last week, I forget the name of the officer. He was saying when they shifted abroad for some 2-year study course. So his wife said कि मैं बच्चे का एडमिशन कराने जाती हूँ सुबह. I said ठीक है, कोशिश करो, मैं तो आज ऑफिस जा रहा हूँ अपने नए ऑफिस में. So at lunch time the wife rings up कि बच्चे का एडमिशन हो गया. said इतनी जल्दी. The school in US just asked 3 pieces of information. 3 pieces of information. In India, a school admission form, all of us know how complicated it is. So simplify the forms. That's what we have been trying to do. Now second thing is annexes to the form. Every form says कि साथ में ये 10 डॉक्यूमेंट चाहिए. And it is always in circles. वो 10 डॉक्यूमेंट के लिए you have to get another 3-4 documents. So the only solution is you have to catch it out to basically produce that bunch of papers. So last year I and Chief Secretary, we went to Settlement Commissioner's one computerized office. So Settlement Commissioner was very proudly showing us, I have done e-modeling. Earlier in Maharashtra, you want to get the surveyor to your land to measure the land boundaries. It would take up to 1 year. So they made the whole process online with online fees and all. Then they took special drive, and now basically you can apply online. You get the dates on through your SMS. On this date surveyors are available, so you choose one date, and that date is fixed. Automatically other people are told, and practically in 15-20 days you get the survey done. But when we picked up the whole bunch of papers which are required, again many of them were unnecessary. Some of the papers actually the citizen had to come to surveyor office, get a copy of the map, and then say कि मोजनी कर दो. Just imagine. So Chief Secretary immediately said, no boss, ये 7-8 कागज नहीं चाहिए, reduce it to 1-page form. So another 15-20 days they could issue those notifications. So we are trying to reduce the number of annexures. So in about 40 major services which account for 95% of the volumes, we have reduced the number of annexures from an average 7-8 to an average 2.5 or so. There is further scope of reducing when servers start talking to one another. Then basically citizen can actually have just a plain paper transaction without any annexures, or sometimes actually paperless transactions. I will come to that. Third is payment methods. Now I remember again my daughter had to apply for BITS exam. So 160 rupees fees we had to actually send a challan. Now, how the hell do you get a challan? You go to a treasury bank, you find some fellows selling these somewhere. So we have simplified these things. The payment component. If you have CSCs, and state after state has that scenario, you are loudly claiming that there are CSCs at village levels or 1 in 4 villages. And how do you fill up the 10 rupees fees? You do a bank challan. How do you bank challan? You go to Treasury Taluka Bank. Just for the 10 rupees bank challan, you go to Taluka office of the bank. So that we are doing away with, that we have done away with actually. Fourth thing is, in Maharashtra we say tappe kami kele karte. The number of touch points. So once a CSC operator takes that form to the Tehsil office, so how many people will touch that form? Will put a stamp or will put a signed signature or do something, or put a tag on the papers. Sometimes you have special peons doing only that thing. Do a punch, do a tag. और उसकी भी सेवा करनी पड़ती है CSC operator को. So we have tried to reduce it to 2 or 3. In some processes there were 7, 8 steps. So reduce the number of steps. After that, output. So how does one get the output? Is it a physical output? It's a digitally signed output. Digitally signed output is obviously much better. Now all of us, when we go to airports, many times we don't even carry a printed copy of the ticket. We just show them our smartphones or iPads, and this is our ticket. Now even in railways, you don't have to carry a printed copy. You can just show the SMS on your mobile, and the TC actually checks against his sheet of paper and gets it. Now in passport, at least in Maharashtra, in vehicle registration, even in Aadhaar letter, citizen does not have to go anywhere. The physical document comes to your home by post or by courier. So that's much better than going to a government office to get your documents. So the 5 components of e-transaction. The input form, simplified. Annexures, try to bring them down, try to eliminate them. The fees, try to make it simple. The internal backend process, try to reduce the number of steps. And the output, most welcome, is digitally signed thing sent on your SMS or email, or a physical document sent to your home. Now let me talk about totally paperless transactions. Now UID is setting up a great ecosystem, which people of this country have still not realized. It's not only a unique identity, it's a great instrument of financial inclusion and paperless services. Now Axis Bank has started across 1,000 branches that a citizen can walk paperlessly without any single piece of paper into a bank branch. Say I want to open a new bank account, just key in his 12-digit UID number, keep any of the 10 fingerprints on the machine. Through eKYC, electronic KYC, the bank manager gets everything, including the photo and the address and the demographics on his screen, and the bank account is opened. This is practically nowhere in the world that you can open a bank account without any piece of paper. Now last week, we inaugurated another place. On Marine Drive in Bombay, we have a government printing press at Chalni Road. So every day morning, about 800 people line up for change in name. Or change in name, most of these are young married girls. की शादी हो गई, नाम चेंज कराना है, कई बार सरनेम चेंज कराना है, कई बार फर्स्ट नेम चेंज कराना है. और मैनी पीपल कम विद ज्योतिषीज एडवाइस कि नाम में एक्स्ट्रा के चाहिए, एक्स्ट्रा ए चाहिए, सो दे वांट ए नेम चेंज नोटिफिकेशन. So what's the normal process? 800 लोग हैं, लाइन लगी है, bunch of papers is asked for. अब जमा करते हो, वो कहते हैं यार 3-4 महीने लगेंगे. So Gazette is printed after an average of 2 months. Sometimes it is printed after 4 months. So the average time period is 2 months. So अपने नेम चेंज का एप्लीकेशन दिया जाके 2 महीने बाद गजट निकलता है. So what have we done now? We have set up 2 counters through Maha Online. We have put some small machine costing 2,000 rupees, a biometric machine, to the desktop, and we have opened eKYC on it. So the citizens can actually fill up the data first sitting at home. A lot of the time on lines, if you see at CSC or anywhere, it is spent in data entry. So I have a basically mantra for every department, that data entry should be hyped off to the citizen. I say in Marathi कि data entry हमारे काम है. It's a laborious job, should not be done by government. It should be offloaded to citizen. Citizen does not make any mistake. Now if you fill up the US visa or many other visas, sitting at home, you fill up the form, you are very careful with your spelling name, your passport number, with your address, you don't commit any mistake. If the government fellow had to do it, he can commit mistakes. So that's what happens in passports. Many times people commit mistakes in passports. Actually it's the passport office which commits mistakes, and then they again make you run around. So the mantra is, let the citizen do it, do the data entry himself or herself. In our property registration we are doing it. So people do the property detailing at home, then they just bring that barcode to the office, that's it. So in name change notification, people fill up the name, what is the old name, what is the new name, and all that stuff at home. So the data is already in the server. So you come to these counters, key in your 12-digit number, put your finger on the machine, so the system knows you. Okay. Second, we said IT Act. Now IT Secretary of Government of India is sitting here. So IT Act long back enabled electronic gazette notifications. That was very specifically mentioned in the IT Act. That instead of print gazette notifications, the government can do electronic gazette notifications. So Director Printing Press told me that the Act allows them to print a gazette only on Thursdays, once a week. But luckily it was a change in only manual, not in Act of Maharashtra, relevant Act. It could be changed at Secretary's level himself. So now the process is, okay, you walk paperlessly, do eKYC, and at 4 o'clock in the evening, the electronic gazette notification can be published, and you can be notified by SMS. So 2 महीने से 2 घंटे का process. That's a change which is possible through e-governance. Eliminates lines, eliminates headache, eliminates doubts. So that's why I started by saying that जो आम आदमी की समस्या है लाइन की और पैटी करप्शन की, आंसर इज e-governance. Very well thought out, very simple e-governance steps. So what are the other macro things we are trying to do? I'll talk about one. E-tendering, e-auction, that's a very major thing. It results in better participation of vendors. It saves about 5 to 10%. So in Maharashtra, we are saving about 3,000-4,000 crores per annum just by e-tendering and e-auction. Second big idea I talked about was e-transactions, use of CSCs, use of online methods, and simplifications. And finally, basically paperless kind of transactions using Aadhaar linked eKYC. Third thing I want to speak about is electronic payments and receipts. Ravi, can you just tell me 5 minutes before I have to stop? You keep track of.
Yes, sir.
Already over? Okay. So I will talk of only one idea. So electronic payments and receipts. In Maharashtra, we get about 1 lakh crores from various taxations. Last year, our entire 60,000 crores of sale tax came through net banking. No DD, no cash, no checks, nothing. Even a demand draft basically takes a few hours to start earning interest for you. But a net banking RTGS transaction starts earning interest immediately. So we estimate that sale tax is getting 200 crores rupees extra by way of extra interest due to this net banking efforts. Entire 15,000 crores of stamp duty came by net banking. Almost 90% of about 8,000 crores of vehicle registrations, it came through net banking. Same thing with the excise, now cold fees. So last year we got about 90,000 crores in our budget purely through net banking. And it makes citizens' life also very simple. I gave a few examples how basically online payments help people. Now on payments out, we pay about 30,000 crore salary every year. A majority of it now, for example, I get my salary into my bank account directly through RTGS. Now we are making it mandatory for private aided school teachers. So RTGS coupled with UID deduplication of salaries, it can save 10 to 15%. So in Maharashtra, and I say with all responsibility, that if we link up all our salaried people, including private aided school teachers, etc., with UID and make RTGS compulsory, the savings are, potential savings are about 3,000 crores per annum. So out of it, about half we have reached, and so that is a major to-do item for us to do this. And we are also trying for single hop RTGS payments directly from treasuries to pensioners, to contractors, to beneficiaries. In scholarships, we did this, potential saving, or actually documented saving is more than 100 crores. So in scheme after scheme, where we are doing RTGS and where we are looking with UID, the savings are about 20%. I have spoken at many forums that just like there is a golden ratio, there is a Fibonacci ratio, the rotten ratio in our government schemes seems to be around 25%. Pick up any scheme, the leakages are to the tune of 25%. Whether it is LPG linked to Aadhaar, scholarship linked to Aadhaar, or even plain to bank. Even salaries linked to Aadhaar, potential savings are about 20-25%. So I will stop here, but I hope you have got some glimpse into what we are doing in Maharashtra and how e-governance, small steps can help the citizens, and some bigger projects can overall save a lot of money. Thank you. So now you will be moderating or should I be calling them? Since we were on the topic of CSCs, I will first ask Pradeep to come up and tell a few things from his perspective, from his company's perspective, that what they think of CSC model, how are they leveraging basically this huge distribution chain, how they are linking Aadhaar with the whole CSC ecosystem. Pradeep.
Respected Agarwal sir, my co-panelist, distinguished guest in the audience. Agarwal sir, I was actually thinking that this lecture should not end because he must be having so many more tricks in his in his cap. which can provide a lot of learnings to other states which are still taking initial steps or midway through in various e-governance projects. And I can very proudly say that a lot of things which he was elucidating, I'm one of the lucky ones who is actually part of that journey for last 3 years in some of those projects. And if I start talking about many such innovations which we carried out through the journey in terms of initial project implementation as well as further operations phase, it can really go long and long. So I'll start with some of the projects which we are doing and how differently we did them in Maharashtra. And maybe in the end we can draw some conclusions, and some of it will be like my wish list also, that some like additional things which could have been done to make it very effective. I'll start with the UIDAI Aadhaar project in Maharashtra. As you can see from the UIDAI website, that Maharashtra is number one as far as number of citizens enrolled in Aadhaar projects are concerned. And most of the districts have now reached more than 80% saturation. Just few districts are left where aggressive enrollments are happening. It might be like, if you just look at the graph, you will see that, okay, Maharashtra is number one, Andhra number two. But what went into making of this number one story is very fascinating. And I would say the bedrock of this success story was innovation, innovation and innovation. And with Agrawal sir's very quick responsiveness and bringing the innovative ideas into execution has made it possible. I can illustrate few examples. When phase 2 phase 1 of Aadhaar ended, and after a few months phase 2 started. That's when there was a lot of pressure on how to enroll citizens. There was so much crowd at the enrollment centers, it was just not possible to run those centers. I can remember Bombay in those days. Every third day you will read in newspapers that operators have been beaten and machines have been destroyed. And there began the innovations part. So first thing was, by coordinating with higher echelons in Aadhaar, Maharashtra is the only state where operating guidelines were changed for doing enrollment, and Agrawal sir was instrumental in getting those things executed. So in this Aadhaar enrollment process, there is a concept of verify. So each and every document has to be verified by a defined set of people, ex-government employees or ex-bank employees. Now that was making this process very complicated to execute at the village level. And this operator is also, it is not that anybody can become an operator and start enrolling. So it is a guy who is exam passed and it is activated in the UID ecosystem. So these were like specialized entities, and bringing them together at the same time on a platform. So when the operator is there, verifier is not reached. So the operational guidelines were that verifier has to be there to verify original documents with the photostat copies, and then only an enrollment can happen. So it's not that in the evening you will come and do verifications and it will be through. So this was making the whole process log jammed. Verifiers were not available. If they were available, they were just their compensations were just 2 rupees for each enrollment. what sir did was that he roped in some auditors from YESDA and created a team, and then wrote to UIDAI that look, if we have a very robust audit mechanism in place, why not these supervisors which are at the camp, and they were already in the phase 1, they were actually the verifiers which were approved by UIDAI. So that was first change which was brought in, and with the help of existing supervisors, we could actually do the verifications. Now, second issue was, like in the initial phase when the pressure of DBTL was not so much there, again more of governance was actually killing the project. When we were to go to, and that is true with any other state, we have to go to a nodal officer in the district collector's office, and there will be a meeting after 1 month, and that meeting will decide that who will deploy a machine in which part of the district, and all kind of, and then we will be told to go to a Tahsildar, and that will take another few days to decide what locations are there. And suddenly the Tahsildar, under the pressure of some MLA in that area or some Sarpanch over there, he will say, no, send one machine to my location, the other guy will pull him over there. So the main scarce resource, which was like the kit and the operator, they were not being optimally utilized. So the second innovation what sir did was, he just issued a blanket, he got a chief secretary's approval and got a order issued across the state that these guys will not require any approval from collector's office. They will be required to just inform collector's office that these are the camp locations and we are doing enrollment. That again decongested the whole process, and many such. So these were two enabling provisions, and after that then I went to sir, I said, sir, look, Bombay is uncontrollable and we will not be able to do enrollments, because anywhere you put up a machine and there's a violence, because there's a 2,000 queue of 2,000 persons and there are just 2 kits there. The capability of 2 kits for enrollment in that particular day is just 100 to 150 enrollments, and 2,000 people with 1 kit. Every day there is to be breaking of kits and a lot of violence and all that. So we came up with a concept called Mega Camp, and in a Mega Camp, like in a hall of this size, we put up 30 kits with 30 operators and 30 machines, and we operated those camps. That was the first camp sir personally visited there. We started from 6 o'clock in the morning to 11 at night, and 2 shifts. And then when one such camp was successful, we quickly replicated this across the city, and we set up 20 such camps. And within 2 months, the whole city was, brought under control. And in this camp, we used to enroll something like 5,000 to 8,000 people every day. That really deflated the pressure, and that is how we could do enrollment in Bombay. And then one day he visited to one of those camps, even Ravi was there, that day we were touring around. When he saw the effectiveness of that camp, immediately from there itself he issued instructions that, okay, issue these instructions to other big cities like Nagpur, Pune, and let's have such mega camps in other cities also. So, long and short, what I'm trying to say is, innovating on the fly, and then making it executed, which is so not there in our.
How the point is helping the CSC operators in their business.
Yeah, I'm coming there. So that was my. So that is how now you see the results. The whole state is now in any other states, Aadhaar linked projects are not flying just simply because the saturation is not, levels are not there. This is one project. In last 1 year, we have done close to 12 million enrolled Aadhaar generated by my own company in Maharashtra. Now, this Aadhaar ecosystem has really revolutionized e-governance efforts. Okay, I'll come to the next project, which is kind of CSC and banking. That is Common BC. we are setting up, we have already set up more than 1,000 common BC outlets in Maharashtra. Now, we are just there at the right time. 2 years back, it used to be all offline systems, and a lot of frauds used to happen at BC outlets because they were just offline. There used to be reconciliation with the banks in 2 days. Now, all these bank CVSs are hosted on cloud for the BCs. We initially started setting up these Aadhaar Kendras. Okay, to come to Sir's point, what ecosystem this Aadhaar has created and what kind of capacity building and skill sets with Aadhaar and NPR in these states. Now you go to any village of 2,000 population and you have computer literate people there to work on any project. And to explain it further, I was talking to one of the BCs in some village in Hingoli district. I asked him how much money are you earning from lamination and printing of Aadhaar card, and you will be shocked to hear the figure. Again, emphasizes that gentleman in one village or one say town of 10,000 population with some 40 villages being served from that place. He is already earning, he is printing 400 Aadhaar cards per week, and his monthly earning is about 50 to 80,000 rupees. He prints and laminates those cards at 50 rupees each. Laminating, printing, downloading, color printing. And he says, sir, this population is about 2 lakhs. My target is 1 lakh for 1 year. And I will earn 50 lakhs from this simple venture, which was just not there previously. And I can tell you, even UIDAI confirms that from their server, every day 4 lakh Aadhaar card downloads are happening online. So as it was the last stage that let people do their own thing. See, UIDAI designed, floated such a huge tender for postal department to deliver these cards. Half of them never got delivered. Finally, people found their way, and they are now about 1 million Aadhaars are generated every day, out of which 4 lakh Aadhaars are downloaded from the server. So it's that size, and I estimated the size of just this industry. It is 800 crores. If you multiply all these cards being downloaded and printed every day and you multiply it by 365, this is an 800 crore industry in those rural villages where people used to just migrate to cities. So there are a lot of transformational things happening on the ground, and it is innate intelligence of those people. You don't need to train them too much. You just need to enable them with a proper environment where their life is made simpler. I want to, so this is what is doing that and linking of Aadhaar with the CSC centers. These CSC centers have become Aadhaar updation centers. So people are coming there to update their biometrics or demographics. Again, the operator earns a lot of money from this. Yes, sure. So in these outlets, apart from these government services, what we have done is we have trained them on complete life cycle requirement of financial products in that village. So first is their usual requirement, aspirational requirement, that is loans for withdrawal deposits and loans. Then comes the need of old age pension need, and then some accidental needs like accidents or deaths, and that is insurance. So all these three needs are fulfilled at those centers by micro insurance, NPS light product, and a banking withdrawal deposit. With these three plus electricity bills, mobile top up, you will not believe it. The national survey for BC is done by RBI says their median income of a village outlet is 2,000 rupees. And if you just take our 25 outlets in Pune district, the minimum income being earned in a village of say population of 2000 population, the minimum income per month has already reached 10,000 rupees. And what is the enabler is, I mean, AEPS transaction and eKYC, it has become a real game changer. Earlier, how we were approaching these centers was we will say, okay, first we will do connectivity, start the operations, and then we will do in the village and we will open bank accounts. But guess what? We suddenly realized that this is a faulty strategy because people who already do banking from that village, they already have bank accounts. Okay, so if you want them to use banking services right at their doorsteps, then something else has to be done. And AEPS came as a boon. We just took their Aadhaar numbers and linked in the bank. So these guys now, so I'm not saying that we should not include the others who are not having bank accounts, but if that will take 6 months to kind of become viable. Because they will first open a bank account, it takes 1 month to activate that bank account before eKYC. And after that they will be taught, look, you deposit 100 rupees and this is how you will do your saving. So that is like complete financial literacy program, which a private company on its own cannot take up. There are viability issues in that. So at the same time, we are asking NABARD and other banks to do those financial literacy programs in those villages. But through AEPS, we found the magic wand, and that is how in a village we link 300 people with their Aadhaar numbers, and that village is doing 250,000 transactions per day. Okay, that translates into his income level of something like 15,000 rupees. And to my surprise, I used to totally discount. How can it be viable in a population of 2,000 people? But in a 2,000 village also, if somebody sitting at home is making a 15,000 rupees income against a median income of 2,000 rupees, something is definitely shifted there. And we should take notice and try to follow these best practices. Just concluding, if we want to learn from the Maharashtra's leaf, innovation, swift action, then result orientation. I wish I had some more time, otherwise I would have taken you through another project, that is IGRS project, where, as sir said, 50,000 crores have been collected this year from stamp duty offices. That is a project completely on cloud, operating, and I am one of the BOT operators. Again, lot of innovations there. And important thing is, when we are doing these projects, all stakeholders should always keep end objective in mind. So when the objective of a stamp duty project was also to weed out doubts, then it is very important that not only we provide technology, but RFP should have a clause that every 1 year the operators which are being provided by BOT operators should be transferred. Okay, some basic innovations in there. Stakeholder coordination, and obviously few of these game changers, and as you can see, I mean, we are all set for some real good days in next few years. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Pradeep. At least in Maharashtra and many other states, we are trying to tell the CSCs that they should not act as Chota Sarkari Babu. They are entrepreneurs. So J2C business should not be more than 1/3 of their business. 2/3 income must come from B2C channels, which primarily include utility payments, Aadhaar ecosystem, being a bank correspondent, insurance services, money transfer services, mobile recharge, DTH recharge, and so on. And in fact, I tell all my SCAs, the middle layer, which is Vakrangi, Spanco, CMS, Basics, Maha Online, that this chain of 25-30,000 CSCs in Maharashtra, it's a huge distribution chain. So why don't you talk to Hero Honda? Why don't you become their agent of selling motorcycles? Why can't you even sell McDonald's burgers through this chain? So that's not a full-fledged joke, but yes, it could be done. So B2C must be 2/3 of the whole business of CSCs. so that they remain truly entrepreneurs and don't basically become decentralized touts or just the G2C delivery points. Now finally, without offending my friends in proprietary databases like Oracle, IBM DB2, Microsoft, both NIC, CDAC, as well as governments like Karnataka, Maharashtra, Kerala, we have been trying to promote open source, whether it is coding, whether it is databases, whether it is operating system. So a lot of our countries' big databases, Vahan, Sarki, eOffice, lot of other big databases are running on databases like Postgre. Entire UID is running on Hadoop file systems. So we have friends from Enterprise DB who put a layer, slightly commercial layer on top of Postgre. So let's get it on. Shashank.
Thank you, Rajesh Agarwal sir, and good afternoon to all the esteemed guests, eminent dignitaries present out here. As two of the fellow panelists have already positioned the crux of any e-governance project, I think e-governance, as they rightly put, is that it's not simply computerization, but it is simplifying governance or making less of governance. That is one. And what is the socio-economic impact it is having on the economy of the state or of the country, which is very, very critical factor. And frankly speaking, I joined Enterprise DB about 9-10 months back from a hardware company, and it was a totally new experience for me, but I saw a very drastic and a very encouraging trend coming out in a country like India, and that was that people were, concerned about the socio-economic impact. That is one. Secondly, the interoperability of the different IT, I would say, frameworks available within the departments. And the most encouraging part has been that, we got a very good response from the government of Maharashtra, and Mr. Rajesh Agarwal has always been a champion for open source databases. And I think it has had an overall impact on, you can say, the overall IT budget which is there, and it is obviously a taxpayer's money which is getting saved when we are talking about a technology which is interoperable, where there are no backdoor bugs. The source code is open for the local intellectuals and the IT fraternity to innovate and maybe take some commercial benefit out of it. And as we all have heard that about the projects where the people are, you can say, an entry-level entrepreneurship is happening because of CSCs, and they are earning good amount of revenue just by printing the documents and giving it to the citizens. So when I am talking about the state of Maharashtra, we are doing a couple of projects with them, but the most interesting, the most talked about project within our company and the other state governments is the land records computerization. So it is one of the perfect cases where the government of Maharashtra and Mr. Rajesh Agarwal sir was talking about the launching of different modules within land records and making all the modules online. And then it was a phase-wise, I would say, phase-wise it was the project that was to be implemented. One was to make it go live, and the other one was go to the next level, making some more integration with other departments within the state government. And the best part was that what we did was we worked in a very collaborative manner, as Pradeep very rightly pointed out that it is not only various stakeholders have to see the end objective of the initiative which is being taken up by the state government. We did a very collaborative work. We acted Enterprise DB, which is basically you can say an OEM of PostgreSQL, because we employ 60% of the inventors the community leaders who invented PostgreSQL, which is an enterprise class open source database. So we acted as a consultant. We did a system study. We did a complete system study, which you can say SRS kind of a smaller version of that. We did along with NIC and along with the state government of Maharashtra. And we analyzed what are the services, what is the impact it is going to have on the budget. Because there were a lot of commercial database vendors also who were coming up and who were saying, when it came to about the customization specific to the project, they were expressing their inabilities, or they were saying that it is going to cost like that. So when we work on this kind of complex project, I think it is very important that the customer should have a vision that 5-6 years down the line, what are the challenges? If I embrace this technology, what are the challenges I am going to face, and what is going to be the total, you can say, the transparency in terms of what is going to the cost of adopting this technology today, 5 years, 6 years, or 10 years down the line. And so it was not very difficult for us because we were really excited to work on this project. And I think it was much more easier for us because the customer, in fact, I will share, when I was talking to the state NIC team, they were saying that you don't need to worry because here is a customer who knows much more than us about Postgres and open source database. So it was very easy, and we worked very closely with Rajesh Agarwal sir, and we identified what are the services that are required for the land records. So we thought that it will be good to position a mix of a product. So what we did was, on the open source database, which is a community version of PostgreSQL, we built in certain manageability features which are available in commercial databases like Oracle and things like that. So we had an enterprise management kind of thing built in, security features built in on the community version, and we said that this is the product that is going to be, fit for this initiative. And the best part was, when we were positioning this product, because it is an open source at core, at heart, the license cost was zero. It was only a subscription cost, which was a socket based. So you can just imagine if it was hosted on, say, a 16 socket or a 32 socket servers with 10 cores, you were saving 320 licenses. And also on the subscription, if it is a 32 socket, the department had to pay only cost for 32 subscriptions when they went for enterprise. Then we also, identified the database requirements like on-site resource, which has to be available for during the course of this project getting stabilized. So we sat down with sir, we defined the scope of work which is required in terms of database management on day-to-day basis, whether it is query tuning, whatever, table partitioning, whatever is required. We identified those things, and then we did a complete kind of POC, test and staging environment. We did a complete POC, and NIC was also involved in that, and it was finally, with the acceptance of all the stakeholders, it was finally accepted, and we launched that initiative. And so the advantage was that there were dual advantages. I mean, this was a project which the team has developed such a competency on this land records. When I'm talking about the team, it is Enterprise DB, even the government of Maharashtra and NIC. And so the best part was that people from other states were also coming to the state of to the government of Maharashtra, and they were taking their inputs like, we also want to launch a similar kind of project in our state. So the best part was, once we did that, it is now getting replicated in 2 other states. The same architecture, the same study which we did for Maharashtra is now getting. So we got a lot of advantage, and now we will be positioning that model in other states also. And so I just thought that this was one of the projects which I should highlight, which we did, and was very successful, and it is a revenue earner for us also, because we are replicating the same thing at other states. And besides, we are also working in IGRS with sir and his team. And so my only request is that the benefits which are evident on embracing PostgreSQL Enterprise DB. I think if more and more applications get, hosted on this database like it is happening in state of Maharashtra, I think it will be good for all the states because it's going to save a lot of money and it is going to have a social economic impact. That's all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shashank. Our experience with open source coding, operating systems as well as databases shows that they're easy to use, quite robust, scalable. So you can use MySQL, you can use Postgre, you can use any variation of Hadoop or anything similar. Luckily, we are quite well in time and we have 10 minutes of question answers. Any questions from the back? We'll start from the back. We have time for about 3-4 questions. Anybody from front seats?
My name is Suman.
Can you pass on the one mic, please?
I think my voice is good enough. Okay. Sir, you are talking about US. You did make a lot of mention about US and how your daughter had a good experience. Have you in Maharashtra tried to link UID at the time of birth? Is it something on your cards?
See, what we in every database, in almost every database, we have been able to add a column in the database, test it out, that it works. So our municipal systems database, our KDMC replication is going on in 220 municipalities. Even in Vahan and Sathi database, education department, health department databases. Now the softwares have added one column which relates to UID, and now seeding is also happening. In fact, in Varda district, at least 10 other departments databases, including your birth database, death database, property card database, they have been able to seed 30-40% UID numbers. So yes, and the ultimate idea is that UID makes other databases speak to one another. Today, different databases do not speak to one another. We link UID in every database, then your birth database of the hospital, then your ICDS, the Anganwadi mein gaya ICDS ka database, then kid goes to primary school, your DICE database, and your PHC health system database. Everywhere you should be able to track the child, right from birth to basically his college admission and actually up till death. So almost every database has now this UID column, and as more and more seeding happens, different databases will talk to one another, and citizen will be able to get his profile across the departments. Next.
Good afternoon, sir. Very nice to hear from you. I have read a lot of the same things on your blog. I'm Karthikeya Raman from Deloitte. Sir, my one sincere question is about, for example, like databases we were talking about and the CSCs. So, is there a golden copy? Are we actually going towards a golden copy of database which will be used by multiple departments, or you also promote that every department can have its own database but should have that primary key as an Aadhaar card? So, going forward, what would be, because then security is also a concern, where databases, some may be very vulnerable. How will you actually have those security features?
Okay, there are 3-4 things. One is we are making sure even the existing databases of various departments, they follow EGOV standards. So the way the name is written, 99 characters or whatever, the way addresses are written, so we're trying to make sure they follow EGOV standards. Second, for example, the village, district, taluka name, we are forcing everybody to use master database Capital Maha Online, which is linked to Census 2011. which in turn enables maps to be basically pulled on the fly. So Marathi terms database. So a lot of databases are now, masters are kept with Maha Online. Every developer has to basically use those databases, master databases. Then third is, we are opening a lot of APIs and web services across different databases. So the server to server talk happens and data is picked up. And finally, when we allow citizens to basically fill up online forms, etc., we are actually only one in the country doing 43A compliance checks. That citizens' privacy is not violated. I should not be able to key in your UID number and see your photo and other things. Only when you are there, you put your fingerprint or an OTP happens on your mobile, registered mobile in UID, and you key in that OTP, only then you or the CSC operator can actually see your data. So eKYC does not mean CSC has access to your UID database. So all these 3-4 things put together, they are ensuring databases are interoperable, but still they are secure and privacy provisions are handled. So you would like to add something on this?
I'm Ashok Ketabali, Engineering Chief, Public Health Engineering Department, Haryana. In fact, the integration of the softwares has been done to some extent in our state also, but whether it has improved some decrease in the areas towards the particular citizen. Are you able to put some government orders by linking that the areas will be reduced? Suppose if the citizen is defaulting in one department because of the payment to the government, pending payment to the government. Do you have some government order to restrict some services to him so that he pays the amount back?
The question very crisply. I think Videsh Tyagi has got the question.
Suppose one citizen has to pay some areas to the government on account of, say, the electricity bills, and he is defaulting on that account. He is not paying it. And on the other hand, he has to fetch some services from the government, say some services in terms of the driving license or some other services. So whether the linking has been done so that if he pays the area first, then he will only get the service from the government.
Here I started with top by saying कि आम आदमी पहले ही बहुत परेशान है. अगर ये कर दिया तो उसकी बिल्कुल ही बैंड बच जाएगी यार. So आम आदमी is happy if actually government departments operate in silos.
No, but the defaulter is not a आम आदमी.
See, in bigger,
must be paying to the government.
See, at macro level, for example, now we have a huge BI project, business intelligence project in sales tax department, where sales tax is talking to Opera Nakas, border checkpost Nakas, even central excise department, and they are sharing information with 18 such departments, which is actually helping all departments in catching defaults. For example, when our sales tax and Bombay Municipal Council, they shared information. We found that in steel parts coming for construction into Bombay, basically people were paying sales tax but they were avoiding Opera. So actually means Patty's income increased by 1 crore rupees a day. Just because the sales tax department shared data with them about basically their income. So this kind of defaults and actual databases sharing and using business analytic tools, and this helps. But at lower levels, at smaller citizen levels, we are not doing that. At business levels, yes, we are doing that.
Has that helped in increasing the revenue to the state?
Massively, massively, very massively. For example, in Thane district, sales tax department could recover 100 crore rupees in false refunds because they could get data from MSEB that these factories actually almost had zero electricity bills. So the refunds claimed were false. So they actually recovered about 100 crore rupees after getting this data from MSEB. Stand up, please. Yeah.
Sir, Anjali Dhingra from NIC Gurgaon. Sir, my question relates to the response time. Now that we will be traversing through several servers while delivering the service, so how about the response time? How can we, any special measures that have been taken up in Maharashtra to reduce the response times?
Better coding. Very unfortunately, the coders or the kids who are coming out of colleges, They're not really up to standard, so you have to really teach them well to write better codes. That's point number one. Second, our entire data center is now running on cloud, private cloud. We run everything on virtual machines. We keep on monitoring CPU and RAM performance. And we're actually able to just move a slider and increase the number of virtual machines or CPU and RAM. It's that simple. So we are able to do thin provisioning of all the departments. Whenever any department gets the load, even for a few hours, we are able to increase the resources on the fly. But best way is actually to do better coding. And I think the audience has been very unfair to me. All the 4 questions have been addressed to me. So future questions next can only be asked to the other 2 panelists. CSCs.
Yes, sir. Suresh Maharaj from Nextender, Bombay. Sir, my question to you, the government of Maharashtra has implemented many projects and now we are the number 1 in the e-governance project or Aam Aadmi, whatever solution you are saying that. How that your project is effective in rural area and what is the percentage of user of G2C? Is it really effective for the rural area? I am not asking that urban people are using maximum internet and all that. But is it effective in rural area also?
CSC project, which is now almost 5 years old, this has really made life simple for villagers to get many kind of certificates. And online recruitment and lot of other online procedures. Even at rural areas, people are doing them themselves or going to CSCs and getting these things done. And actually in e-transaction, in e-tal also we had Istanbul 2 spot 6 months back. But then after Punjab we became the second government to do away with affidavits. So we said no affidavits of any kind. कोई सरकारी आदमी का नहीं चाहिए, कोई नौकरी का नहीं चाहिए, no affidavits. So a large chunk, about 30% basically, we saw a fall in our total number of transactions. We keep on monitoring that nobody is taking affidavits. So that has again brought down our e-transactions, about which we are actually happy that we are sliding down in e-tal and not going up in e-transactions. So because we are taking steps to actually eliminate a lot of transactions. But yes, our lot of e-governance has been focused on rural areas. And I would say that about 30-40% is for e-governance projects in Maharashtra have been for businesses, our sale tax, then vehicle registration, excise, and 60-70% efforts have been for projects which directly impinge on the rural population. And in fact, our agricultural department has been getting number 1 position in across the country in e-governance projects. So that's a very active e-governance department. It totally touches the villages.
Thank you.
I am from...
One second. Just want to add to that. If you see what kind of now banking is happening in Maharashtra's rural villages, and I was telling you, these are like villages with like a population of 800 to 5,000. And seeing is believing. If some of you guys are in Bombay, just ring me and I'll take you to some of these centers. It is completely, paradigm shift. These are the people who are not required to bring their passbook to that center. This center functions from 7 in the morning to 11 at night, or sometimes even you can wake him up and on a data card you are connected to bank's CVS. So bank is closed at 2, but in this village you can do banking at 1 o'clock at night, and that is, he gives you a receipt coming from the CVS of the bank. And it has been a very tough task for us to convince these villagers that look, you need not have a passbook, you don't have to bring your account number, you just need to have your Aadhaar number. You just put that Aadhaar number, and in the bank, whichever account is linked to that Aadhaar number, transaction happens on that account. And they are not required to fill those those withdrawal slip, you will not believe it, in some of these villages there used to be people sitting outside the bank and they charge 10 rupees to fill that withdrawal slip. Now all that is history. People sitting in their villages, they just go to the branch, put their finger there, transaction happens, they get a slip and they get voice prompt which says so much of amount has been withdrawn from your account or so much of amount has been deposited. And thanks to Aadhaar, this is for the first time that biometric banking is happening not only in India but anywhere in the world. That was to my utter surprise. See, eventually, why do we have these ATM and PINs and two-factor authentication? Because biometric authentication, the rate of authentication was very poor. So for the first time when we captured very high quality biometrics in terms of Aadhaar, now the authentication success rate is close to 98%. So 98% of your transactions are not declined. And that is how those villages are now more advanced than all of us sitting here in terms of the banking capabilities.
Thank you. Now one last question.
Yeah, I have a proposal regarding linking of subsidy related programs with these CSC in Maharashtra or otherwise in India. Subsidy relation, that means a subsidy transfer, subsidy and the beneficiary to the banks and to the firms.
Without Aadhaar, we have been really pushing for RTGS based direct bank transfers. For example, last year we had a drought in Vidarbha area, Amravati Nagpur area, and farmers were compensated almost 800 crore rupees. Some checks were as little as 1,000, 1,200 rupees. So this entire money actually went into farmers' bank accounts. No cash, no check payments. So that is one. Second is CSCs are now acting as bank correspondents. So that is bringing the CSC element there. And third is a lot of UID linking. People are getting enrolled at UIDs, they are updating their UID at CSCs, they are actually opening bank accounts at CSCs, they are withdrawing money at CSCs. So through that through that route the linkages are coming. So one very last question from the last row, I have somebody.
My name is Rajneesh and I am from Hong Kong. My question is, the villagers who are taking services from the CSC, so are they open to get the services from any CSC, or they are only limited to whatever, villages, whatever CSC has been attached to their villages? So they can go to any of the CSCs to avail the services?
We are concerned and we are trying to say that 2/3 services will be B2C. They can go obviously to any CSC in Maharashtra for DTH recharge, mobile recharge, money transfer, etc. For many things, for example, Satbara extract, almost they can go to any CSC in that taluka. Only where basically that CSC operator has to go to a particular tehsil office, get their stamp. So even here, in fact, we have been talking to CSC operators and SCAs that rather than calling him VLE, we should actually rename him as TLE. That he is a taluka level operator. Because within that taluka, any VLE can go on motorcycle to tehsil office and do the job. And basically reducing monopoly actually helps politer service as well as it reduces the bribe if any. If there are 10 VLEs where a person can go to any of the VLE to get that caste certificate, he may go, in fact, he will leave the VLE 2 kilometers away and walk 5 kilometers if he is getting a cheaper and better service. So practically they are able to issue within that taluka because they are attached to one tehsildar rather than another. So thank you everybody for very patiently listening to us. And now Ravi, what are the instructions for me?
Thank you so much, sir, for being so patient. I hope sir has answered all the queries and questions from the audience. I would now request sir to present the token of appreciation to the speakers. Mr. Pradeep Kumar, CEO of Akramke. Ladies and gentlemen, can we have a huge round of applause to Mr. Shashank, Director Government Sales, Enterprise DB. Thank you, sir. I would now request Shri Vivek Atre ji, MD Heartron, to felicitate Mr. Rajesh Agarwal ji. Thank you, sir. We will now break for lunch. I request all the audience to please visit the exhibition area also.